You may have noticed that on some Sundays, Gloria and I dash out of here at the end of service, and you miss our delightful contributions to coffee hour. As most of you know, we are dashing out to make the 3 o'clock curtain at the New York City Ballet. We'll be doing it again next week, that's a fair warning, to catch our final winter subscription performance, which is The Sleeping Beauty, a ballet the great dance maker of our time, the late George Balanchine, had always wanted to create for the New York City Ballet. I think he did in many ways, but indirectly, but that's another subject for another time. Or you could read my novel, Quest of the Sleeping Princess. Earlier this season, Gloria and I saw The Prodigal Son, Balanchine, very early ballet on this gospel that was far from tutus and pirouettes. It's from 1929 to music by Prokofiev. The ballet based on today's gospel differs a bit. There is no older brother complaining about how he did all that work and he never got a party. Instead, there are 2 sweet sisters. And so what is not in the ballet is that business of the brother's irritation of having done all that work, and yet his younger, dissolute brother gets the party. For one thing, how do you show that with ballet if you can't talk? But that's not the point of Mr. Balanchine's early creation. I would recommend that you look that up on YouTube. There is an excellent performance by Mikhail Baryshnikov, which should come right up when you search for Balanchine's Prodigal Son. Balanchine's Prodigal Son certainly shows his impatience, making great leaps and shows of defiance. He takes his inheritance and with his servant goes out into the world and certainly naively falls into bad company that includes a character called a siren, a woman with whom he spends some time. But these people rob and beat him. His servant runs off with them, and the son is left to die. In the final part of the piece, we find a dark stage and hear grim music. Our prodigal appears in rags, unable to walk on his knees, clutching a staff and inching forward in darkness. He crawls across the stage, a desperate, weak figure, and we know he is going home, or trying to. Then finally he sees it in the distance, points at it, collapses, rouses, reaches out, puts his hand to his face and sinks. He summons up his strength and is upright on his knees, and he continues desperate and exhausted. He reaches home, but finally collapses at the gate. One of the sisters comes running out, sees him, calls out to the other sister. They minister to him, caresses, water. He is home. They settle him on the ground, let him rest. The father emerges from the house. He comes forward, his arms out. He comes to his son, who lifts his face to his father. Then he shudders and turns away in shame. The father also turns and walks away. But then he turns back and extends his arms toward his weeping son. Perhaps the son feels it. He rises to his knees, turns, reaches out. Then he bows, and still on his knees, he puts his arms behind him. He clasps his hands behind him, his knees moving forward. His arms behind him pulling back, an extraordinary way that Balanchine depicts the son's inner shame, his need, and the struggle as he moves slowly forward on his knees toward his father, who remains where he is. He looks like Abraham, the father's long beard. He is unmoving. His outstretched arms drop as his son struggles toward him. And as he comes closer to his father, his hands separate, he reaches out. The father still does not move. The son collapses again, his hand touching his father's feet. His father doesn't move. The son clasps his father's ankles. He crawls forward. He reaches up and grasps his father's hands. The father does not look down. The son pulls himself up his father's body so that his head is almost at his father's waist. Still, the father does not move. He continues to climb, reaching for his father's shoulders, climbing, his father still unmoving, seemingly not even seeing his son, who has now climbed up and puts his arms around his father's shoulders, lifting himself up, his knees curling up to his father's shoulders like an infant. And now the father looks down at his son, and with one hand lifts up the side of his cloak, and with it gathers it around his son as the music slowly and quietly ends and the stage darkens. Now, Balanchine created this ballet in May of 1929. He had left Russia at the revolution. How could he have left Russia? There was no Russia, not the one he had grown up with. From the age of 6, he'd been surrounded by theater, by the ballet, and the ballet served the Tsar. It's a 17th century heritage, the teacher calling out to plie, and the sound of the revolution outside on the streets. It's in that tension that Balanchine's genius was born, the ability to create a dance with two people on a bare stage to the music of Stravinsky, a great friend, or the full-out fun of his Nutcracker to the music of Tchaikovsky, still danced every Christmas season. He created The Prodigal Son to Prokofiev's music early in his career in 1929, and one wonders if it has anything to do with his guilt of having to leave Russia, of homesickness. But he loved the United States. It gave him a home for his dancers and his dances, a home that saw little real ballet at first, a country that did not yet know how to plie. He started a school which still exists, and the first performance of his first ballet, Serenade, was danced on a New York estate in the rain. He did return to Russia, a success with the New York City Ballet in the 1960s. The country gave him standing ovations and honors, and Balanchine met his brother, a composer, after decades of being apart. But Balanchine was terrified that he would be arrested before the tour was over, and he left early. Imagine being terrified of being in your own homeland. But back to the prodigal son, who hasn't had a problem with their parents, who doesn't have issues. There are expectations of parents planted in their own times that never fail to butt heads with the times that are a-changing. My brother came home from college with long hair, jeans, and a t-shirt. And my father was horrified that he'd flown on a plane wearing that. There were long fights about the Vietnam War, but in the years to come, they did become great pals. Dad and I got along just fine. My issues were with my mother, of course, and there's no gospel for that. But Mom and I were just fine after high school. In fact, my mother kept comparing me to Mary Tyler Moore when I came to New York. The problem with my father happened after Mom died. She died in July, on the 4th of July, 93. In August, Dad was talking about getting married again. There was an incredible surprise to us, and I thought, well, he took care of my mother for those years, let him be happy and taken care of. The woman he was going to marry was someone from my past, had been a member of my mother's bridge club. The problem was that one of my brothers was vehemently against the wedding. He was the lawyer in the family, and he told my father that it was too soon, that he didn't know what he wanted, stuff like that. Suddenly, my family was divided into two parts. We'd never had that before. And the once good son became the bad son. Things were so topsy-turvy, and then there was the "Will you come to the wedding, don't come to the wedding" song. Helena, that was Dad's fiancée, didn't want us at the wedding. Dad wanted me to come. I said, if she doesn't want me, I won't come. Dad said, write her a letter. Be nice, asking her if you can come, and I'll give it to her. I wrote the letter. Dad didn't give it to her, the coward. Once he called me at the office, and I asked him if he wanted me to come, and Helena was on the extension. Remember phones? And she said, why would you want to come? I didn't go. My older brother went, uninvited, and after the wedding, my dad, deliberately lost my brother's car in the Washington, D.C. traffic. I didn't hear from Dad except once when back from their honeymoon he called me. Nice of him, but I was nice. My parents used to call me at 9 on Sundays. He wanted to keep up the tradition. He didn't. My boss arranged me to go to Arlington, where they lived, on an assignment, so I called my father, and I told him I would take him and Helena out to dinner on the company's bill. The company would pay. Wasn't that nice of me? So we agreed to meet at my motel, I think it was a Holiday Inn, for drinks. It was all very nice for a while. Then Helena said that my mother had not taken good care of my father. I literally really saw red. I jumped up and screamed at her, "Don't ever say anything about my mother. You wouldn't understand her. She was a damned good woman." Let me tell you that the guys at the bar at the Holiday Inn turned away from the game to watch us, and all the people in the bar looked over at our drama, which didn't exactly please my father. Helena got up, walked away. Dad was disgusted, and I said, "How do you let her criticize Mom?" Well, we went to dinner, and it was as if that didn't happen. It was pleasant, just chit-chat, a great restaurant with a view of the Kennedy Center. Oh yes, the Kennedy Center. Life with Dad was awkward for a while. Then one day, he called me up. He said, "I can't stand her. I have to leave her." I was in my office. I had to wave people away, and I said, "We'll do whatever you need." It was an incredible feeling of forgiveness. It was physical. It was like a lot was drained out of me, and I could see very clearly what he wanted and needed. It was very, very extraordinary. And I called my brothers. Duff agreed to take him in and help him find a place and maybe a part-time job. But in a few days, Helena called and said Dad was in the Arlington hospital. I took the train, I met my brother, and Dad was dying. His doctor didn't understand. My dad had myelodysplastic syndrome, a form of cancer common, he said, in World War II veterans. But his doctor didn't understand how it had progressed so quickly. He had given Dad at least 5 years. When I got to Arlington Hospital, I found him barely conscious, though he squeezed my hand when I spoke to him. The nurse there was named Peggy, my mother's name, and she would hustle us in when Helena wasn't there. She got the lay of the land, and hustle us out when Helena came. She got the lay of the land right. It was a long wait. We would go in and talk to him, but did he know we were there? And he passed away when we were there, Duff and I with him. A World War II vet, a guy who loved Christmas, did a great job selling Coca-Cola, who loved his first wife and was an incurable romantic, a sentimental guy with a great bass baritone with whom I sang a duet every Christmas. Dad and I were in charge of Christmas. We got the tree, we decorated it, we sang the carols. We all have memories of our fathers, some good, some bad. We all have our angers and our sorrows and our memories. Fathers haunt us as much as mothers do. Well, we carry the name. It's a patriarchal system. We wander away from them, but we never really get that far without turning back. We're proud of their successes. We resent their failures. We try to be like them, or we leave home because of them. And the gospel here does not say what happened when the prodigal returned home. The ballet doesn't say either. But there's always a time when we stretch out our arms and hope that we will feel the touch of love as we reach up to be one with him. Have we ever had issues with forgiveness?